Hello everyone, this is Kristen with Quest and welcome to PeopleSoft Week. Today's session is PeopleSoft Automated Testing Success, a case study at State of North Dakota and North Dakota University System with Tarun and Randy from SpearMC. I do have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. All attendee lines are in mute and will stay in mute throughout this session. If you have any questions, please put them in the question drop-down box that's located on your GoToWebinar panel, and we will answer those at the end of the session. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Quest content library. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Randy and Tarun, who are going to kick things off.
Hey, thanks, Kristen. It's a pleasure to be invited back again. Love the PeopleSoft Week. I'm going to jump in. We only have an hour and we have probably an hour and a half to 2 hours of content. So I will be as brief as possible. Those of you that know me know how difficult that can be for me. Brevity is does not come naturally. Anyway, I'm Randy Johnson. I'll get to our intro slides here in a second, but the title here, PeopleSoft Automated Testing, the PTF accelerators are what we're going to talk about from SpearMC, but the proof is in the pudding, right? And so toward the end of the deck, we discuss our implementation at North Dakota and at NDUS, North Dakota University System, and how we are using that to then help our clients stay current with their PeopleSoft investment. So I get to do the intro slides and the SpearMC marketing pitch. I'll be super brief on that. And for the most part, we're going to be hearing from Tarun talking about the PeopleSoft Test Framework. That's the tool that's available to all of you who are PeopleSoft licensed owners of that application. It comes with PeopleSoft and the SpirumC Testing Grounds tool set, which we believe enhances the test framework and makes it usable, traceable, and reportable. So he'll spend probably the majority of our hour going through that, showing you some recorded videos of the tool in action. And then he'll turn it back to me and I'll talk about the case study over at North Dakota and NDUS. And hopefully we'll have time for Kristen to read off the questions and we can get you those answers. If we run out of time, we'll still capture those questions in the question section, and we can always get those answers to you through Quest after the fact. All right, without further ado, this is me. I'm sharing my webcam so you can see that picture was taken when I began my career at SpearMC a few years back. That picture of Tarun is actually quite accurate. He's a young rising star here at SpearMC and leads our PTF and automated testing practice. These are our actual emails, and yes, those are even our actual cell phone numbers. We take calls, please. If you have further questions, contact either one of us. If you want immediate response, contact Tarun. If you want one a day or two later, then shoot me a text or a call. Either one of us, or copy us both in an email. I promise those will get through to actual human beings. What is SpearMC? Well, we are a platinum partner with Oracle, and we have focused on the PeopleSoft ecosystem since our existence, since we began, and we continue to do that. Our extension beyond PeopleSoft always starts with a PeopleSoft connection. So whether it's cloud and Hyperion being integrated with PeopleSoft, or business intelligence flowing through as a PeopleSoft reporting, or even hosting on OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, all with a focus in mind of PeopleSoft. It's been where we've had our business for as long as we've been in existence. We are in every continental time zone in the United States, with plans of expansion up north here soon. We've been growing. We started off in San Francisco. We started over in Spear Street in San Francisco, and if you've made the connection. Yeah, that's how we got our name. Our founder went outside, looked at a street sign, and that web domain was available. We've spread across the country. Our larger offices are San Francisco and Chicago, where we have our administrative headquarters and where I happen to live. My phone is blowing up. I'm from Wisconsin, and apparently Aaron Rodgers has signed a 4-year extension. And so everyone feels the need to interrupt me while I'm doing a presentation to hundreds of folks. Back to SpearMC. Gartner is recognizing SpearMC around our PeopleSoft practice and around our approach to helping our customers use their investment in a cloud-like environment, the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This is like moving to an Amazon AWS or Oracle's cloud version. And it is simply spectacular when you're integrating that with a PeopleSoft footprint and all of the tools and features that come with it. So we have been recognized by Gartner in really our PeopleSoft initiatives and in our focus on how we can incorporate the cloud into the PeopleSoft ecosystem. I mentioned this is the PeopleSoft as the center of everything. We're talking about testing, automated testing and testing as a service. And that falls actually into our managed services practice at SpearMC. But as you can see, each one of these offshoots come from our bread and butter, right? The sole area of focus that continues to be for SpearMC, the PeopleSoft domain. As I mentioned, one of the facets of managed services is testing as a service. And we'll only do this with the automated tool, PeopleSoft Test Framework. We don't sign up to let you subscribe to have PeopleSoft executed on manual test scripts by SpearMC. We focus on running those in a highly efficient way through our automated test scripts. And toward the end of the presentation, we'll talk to you about the process of how we take our demo gold PTF scripts and we migrate them to work in your environment. Other facets of managed services include infrastructure hosting, primarily through Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and then technical and functional support, whether you're still on premise or if you are hosted at any hosting partner. Again, we prefer OCI, but certainly if you're hosted on AWS or Microsoft, the Microsoft platform, the Azure, we certainly can accommodate supporting on technical and functional aspects of those environments as well. And we believe the key to all of this is helping our customers get what they're paying for, right? You're paying for ongoing maintenance of your application. And if you're not staying current, you're not taking advantage of those investment dollars. All right. The types of contracts we have, highly flexible. We as we mentioned, technical, functional, we can do on-prem, off-prem. We use Jira as our support desk system and provide our clients with log-on capability. So there's always very transparent reporting and complete visibility of what is happening, what's going on, and where we are in the list of any type of tickets that have been raised. That's it. That's the sales pitch. That's what we do. We truly have focused on services like PTF and testing as a framework as an ongoing subscription type of service for our customers. And this is one of the top attended presentations that we do at our user conferences. With all that said, I'm going to keep presenting, but Tarun is going to do the talking going forward. So Tarun, I'm going to let you take the wheel and just tell me when you want me to advance to the next slide.
Yeah, cool. All righty. So we're going to talk about PeopleSoft Test Framework for a bit, or I'll call it PTF. So PTF has been part of PeopleTools since 8.5.1, and it was really built in the beginning as an Oracle internal tool to do their own testing. And then when they start to realize that customers could probably use this for themselves to do their own functional testing, they started releasing it and they started updating it with each patch. So in the beginning, PTF was really built for test engineers and developers. So it has a lot of features that support that. It allows you to execute in multiple different browsers. It allows you to use multiple different test cases within each test for data management, and so that you can make tests more reusable. It allows you to link different tests together so that you can create a data flow from beginning to end of a larger process. And I'll call that shells. And then it allows you to create certain reports to check if tests have broken in a PUM update and stuff like that. So there are a lot of tools sort of built into PTF that help support it. And we'll see a few of those in just a second, because the next slide should have a video demo for us of kind of what PTF looks like. So here I'm in the tool, and I'm going to record a script, because at its core, PTF is really a record and replay tool. It's built on top of Selenium, and Selenium, rock solid, can't go wrong. And you'll see a lot of similarities between this and other Selenium record and replay tools. So I'm gonna click record. I'm gonna navigate through PeopleSoft, and I think for this test, I'm entering a requisition, I believe. So Randy, you can actually probably skip forward a little bit, because I'll just be going through functional steps here. So if we skip forward through me navigating through creating a requisition, and then if we slow down here, at this point, I'm filling in all the fields as if I'm running the test manually, but I'm trying to touch any field that I want to record in the test for later, because we have to remember that since we're recording an automated test, we can always change the values at a later point. Or we can choose not to run certain steps, so it's better to record more than what we need. So here I'm going through, continuing to record my test. There are certain things that you can do since you're running an automated test, like verifying fields. When you're running a manual test, you might refer to a specific field on a page and confirm that it's a certain value. You can record steps like that in with PTF as well. For example, here I'm going to try and verify that this is marked as the status of approved. So I'll select verify, I'll click and drag this over to status that says approved, and then that's recorded into my test. So what this test was supposed to do was enter a requisition and basically check that the status says approved right afterwards. So now that I'm done recording, I click stop, and it populates the PTF tool with all of the steps required for my test. And this is where the real PTF development actually begins. So now that you've recorded your test, our job as PTF developers is to make these tests as dynamic as possible for the future. Because every time you rerun, you want to try and limit the amount of hard coding there is in the test for values, for steps. So you want to try and make it as repeatable as possible with as little user input as possible. So here you can see I'm removing a bunch of steps, and the reason I removed all the navigation steps is related to making PTF scripts more dynamic. PTF uses something called page prompt, where basically it's going to navigate directly to a specific component and page rather than going through navigation, which means that even if your navigation changes, your PTF scripts won't break, but it'll still be able to test security for the page, because if a certain user doesn't have access to a page, it'll give you a security error. So here I'm going through and removing any steps that I don't need. For example, here I had a prompt table that I opened up. That doesn't really need to be part of the test. That's not what I'm testing. Instead, I want to enter the value directly into the field. And this is basically what the test looks like at the end. And this is what a very simple PTF test might look like. It's a bunch of rows where each row is associated with a step in the test. Here I'm going to save the test now, so I've entered a description in for it. I can even put in some test comments if I'd like at a header level. There are test comments at the line level as well, and test case level if you're interested in getting that specific. Basically, a lot of places to insert information if you need to. And I think at this point, I'm ready to save my test. So I'll name it. Naming conventions in PTF are, the naming is global. This is starting to get a little technical, so I'm going to skim right over that. And then once I've saved, this will be added to our PTF library. I'm not sure if I show the PTF sort of overall library view in this demo, but it basically just looks like a folder structure. So it's pretty easy to navigate and access. And something that we've just started doing at NDUS is actually having some of the BAs go into the tool themselves and take a look at these scripts and edit them in there. So it's not impossible to navigate. It's accessible enough. And I think that's really where I'd like this demo to end for this.
Okay. I shall escape. Next slide. Whoops.
So while we were going through that, I'm sure there were things that were coming up in your head as questions about how do we do this, how do we do that? Do you have access to the test scripts online in PIA, for example? There are a lot of places in PTF that there are a lot of kind of gaps that are still out there in the PTF tool because of the fact that it was built primarily for test engineers and more technical folks. So at Spear, we're working on a tool. We've got this tool called the Testing Grounds that tries to open this PTF tool up to a larger audience. So how do you help BAs, for example, who don't want to go log into the tool, review test evidence, things like that. So if you go on to the next slide, I'll start to discuss some of those issues. So since PTF was created for an engineering audience, it's great for creating, maintaining, running your test library. Even migrating between environments is super easy since PTF saves all of its objects as like PeopleSoft objects. So you can just use App Designer, put everything in a project and migrate it to your next environment. However, since it was kind of focused at this audience, it doesn't really deliver much reporting capability. So viewing your test data online is not really possible with the delivered tool. You also can't edit your scripts online with the delivered tool. So that is really where our testing grounds bolt-on comes into play. So if we go to the next slide, these are the big things that are delivered with the testing grounds. So you get some dashboards, so that everybody loves dashboards. You go online, you can see what scripts have run, you can drill down to the specific error messages or hopefully lack thereof, but you can still view the log of successful runs. You can manage specific test script data. So let's say that you're trying to stage for the next environment, you should be able to go into the tool online and update the specific values for test cases online and save them so that when a actual developer is going to go run your tests, it's already staged for them. You can view all your execution logs online outside of the dashboard as well in a separate page where you can export them as a PDF and save them off for audits later or for whatever you might need to use them for. And then what we're currently working on is the ability to define test cycles within our tool online so that you can hopefully start to move away from Excel trackers managing your test cycles, and we can start to do everything in PeopleSoft where the testing is actually occurring. So on the next slide, we're going to see kind of, I've laid it out a little bit of sort of sections of PeopleSoft or of the testing grounds. And one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the gold item at the very bottom, which is the gold library. And Randy made a small mention about this earlier. Sort of in our implementation, we try to use our gold library first and then edit those scripts. So we have a library of scripts, of PTF scripts that we've developed to work in a demo environment for finance, HCM, ELM, campus solutions. That really covers most of them, I think. And so these serve as an accelerator for our development. It gives us somewhere to start. And this provides two helpful things. First of all, it gives developers a place to begin with the PTF scripts. And it also gives us a set of Excel scripts for these demo processes that help us define our requirements for these tests themselves. So on the next slide, I believe we'll have a demo. So these are just going to be some short snippets from our tool. So here is a quick look at what our dashboard kind of looks like. So you can see that we've got different columns with various statuses. Each of these rows is associated with a folder in PTF. So generally we separate our folders by module. So now that I've selected one of these folders, I'm going to select a specific test. It gives me a couple of options. I can pull up the log for the test here, which I'm going to do for one of these error tests, because this lets me scroll all the way to the bottom and figure out exactly what the error was on this test. So after I've scrolled to the bottom, we have the error message tracked inside the log itself, which is what PTF does. PTF also saves a screenshot when you encounter an error, and we can access that online through our tool. So here you can see that, all right, we can see the screenshot, we can see exactly what happened to cause this error, and I'm going to zoom out. And when we clicked on the actions button on that test, there were actually two options. One was to see a detailed log, and the other was to update test data. So this is what I mentioned about being able to update certain bits of information online rather than having to open up the tool. So here we've limited it specifically to being able to update the value column of PTF, which is similar to the access that you would have using the PTF user role if you were to talk about it in PeopleSoft security terms. So here I'm able to change an account. Maybe this account is no longer the same and I need to update it on this test case. So we've changed the account here. We can save it, and we can also use this button here to print a manual script, which prints out an Excel version of these steps, it's really just a printout of these steps in an Excel document, which can be helpful for tracking later or for communicating about the steps. So this operational dashboard is what I was mentioning is our sort of work in progress right now for maintaining various test cycles. You should be able to list all of your tests that you need to be running within that test cycle. This also gives you the option to update your test data, view all that information there, same as the dashboard. But here we can also do things like identify which specific test cycle we'd like to associate it with. And you can define these test cycles on a separate page and just use a prompt table. So here, all of these places where you're filling in information about the test, it's looking at the list of tests that you actually have in the system and calling from those in a prompt table. Same with the execution options. I didn't really discuss this yet, but with PTF, when you want to handle test users, you have to use execution options, and that allows you to run different tests with different users and test security in a much more real way than running all of your tests with VP1 or some other super user. So I just clicked a button to generate a batch script. And this batch script has all of those tests that were in that test cycle in order. And that lets us kick off that order of tests with one click with that batch script. So pretty handy. So this is the test evidence report, which is, I think, the final page, which is kind of funny because this was the first page that we actually developed in Testing Grounds. This page allows us to generate PDF versions of our PTF logs. PDF versions of our PTF logs. That's a complicated one. So here I'm going to go through, set some filters up. I've got a from date, a to date for our test cycle. So that lets us start to identify which specific run of a test we want to call out. For example, we can filter by status, so our log result. So in this case, you can pick specific tests that have failed. You can see that we have the full log available online here to view. So if you just really need to quickly check, make sure it's the right one before you generate your PDF report, you've got a preview here. Of course, this preview still includes screenshots, super important. So if you needed to confirm that this was the right one, you had a certain screenshot you were looking at, you can see all of that here. So once you've confirmed, all right, this is the test I'd like, you can select generate one of these reports, one of those 3 buttons. Each one is a different sort of level of detail. My personal favorite is the detailed report because it has everything, including the screenshots that we were looking at earlier, as well as all of the log results and some header information like who ran the test, when they ran it, what environment they ran it in, all of that information. And you can save this off for later. We've used this previously to basically confirm that we finished building scripts and to provide proof of completion. And it's nice and easy because even if your environment gets refreshed and you lose your logs or anything, you've always got these PDFs as sort of backup, as proof that you've run your testing. Alrighty.
New one. I guess this is with drill down.
Oh, no. I was just restarting the video.
The same one?
Yeah, it's just restarting the video. You can keep going.
Sorry.
What I do have are, if you missed any of them in the testing grounds sort of demo that I did there, I've got some screenshots here so that you can take a kind of closer look. So here we've got the testing dashboard with the drill down and everything. I'll show the drill down on the next slide, but here you can see that, you've got this high level overview, and then when you select a specific folder, it takes you to the next slide, which is the drill down to the folder. And you can see that I've got all the results on the right side for specific tests so that you can see at a high level which tests have run, which tests have passed, which tests have failed. And then once you select one of those tests and you want to look at the logs, it'll take you to the next slide. So let's say you click on the detailed log button there, it pulls up these log results. And these log results have error screenshots, as really all automated testing tools should. So let's go to the next slide, where we pull up one of those error screenshots online. And I think that this is something that was really missing with the PTF tool, at its base level, is being able to view logs and screenshots online. So on the next slide, we'll take a look at that update test data page again. So you can see that on the left side, we've got test line descriptions, and the page tries to pull these from the field definitions where possible. And if there's anything filled in the comments section for each of the lines, it will override it and use that instead. So that lets you, define specific instructions on here if you needed to. And then you can update the value column so that a developer can run it later. So let's say that we save that and we move on to our next one, which is talking about defining test cycles. Here's that page that we saw again. And again, there's that button. I just want to call that out to create a one-click batch script. Now that one is this is really where I think our work in progress is for our next release for testing grounds. And then our last slide is our last page in testing grounds, which is, oh, I forgot to change the header on this, but this is actually the test evidence report. So this is where we generate PDF reports, and you can do a quick preview of whatever tests you want to generate a report for. Once you've confirmed that you've filtered properly, you've pulled up the correct tests, you can create a PDF test evidence for your review later, for audits, whatever you might need them for. And with that, pull through discussion of PTF tool, the PTF tool itself. Let's talk about North Dakota.
Well done, Tarun. Thank you. Yeah. So now, how have we used this at our clients? So one of our great clients is a combination. So the State of North Dakota and North Dakota University System, NDUS, they have essentially 6 pillars in PeopleSoft. They have, well, I shouldn't go to that slide yet. Let me get to, they have 6 pillars in PeopleSoft. NDUS, the university system, has financials, HCM, and campus solutions. And over at the state, they have financials, HCM, and ELM. you might have guessed that they are separate instances of PeopleSoft. So that's why we have 6 pillars, even though there's an FSCM and an HCM overlap, completely different set of customizations and business processes between the organizations. So really the only thing that we had in common was that we did it all on one contract with the state and NDUS together. We were able to use the same internal support team or many of the same resources across the pillars. But the university and the state, they provided individuals unique to each of these pillars for our overall implementation. Tarun mentioned that we have a number of demo gold scripts. There are probably 4 times, not 4, there's probably double the number that we ended up implementing for the state and for NDUS. And that's because we were able to de-scope a number of scripts and modules that either aren't implemented or didn't make sense for NDUS and the state. And so ultimately we landed on this number of total scripts and shell scripts, which are the end-to-end scripts that we execute during the automated test cycles. Okay, now I'm going to bounce back up. What do we do? Well, Tarun showed you the testing grounds. It's a bolt-on, right? We pre-built this with PeopleSoft, so it is a complete standalone bolt-on solution. And if you want to just engage with us and we prefer to provide services to our customers, and so we like to help you set it up, and then we like to help run testing cycles through the automated tool in a service we call Testing as a Service, or TAS. And that is what we describe here. So what is the cycle? What did we do at North Dakota and NDUS? Well, we start with the starter kit, right? That's the demo goal. That's the loading up the testing grounds onto your system. And what I can guarantee is that our demo gold scripts will work in your demo environment. that I can be sure of. And that's important actually, because we want to start knowing that our scripts work, which is why we built them in demo. Those gold scripts, then when we bring them in to your environment, if you recall when Tarun was showing you the dashboards, there's a button where you click the print manual script that generates the step-by-step process for our demo gold scripts in sequence, clicking on every field because we don't know what fields, what chart fields, how our customers have structured their PeopleSoft environment. Maybe they even have custom fields that they've added to pages. We start with those demo gold scripts, the Excel test scripts, the manual scripts, we call them, and we iterate with our clients to go through those documents themselves and make edits where your business process differs from the business process in demo. It could be that you don't use a particular chart field, or you have an extra approval step, or whatever the difference is. We do that initially through these documents. As we get those updated, our developers are making edits to the actual automated PTF script, so that eventually we end with a library that is no longer demo gold, it is customer gold. And believe it or not, we take those final scripts and they can be migrated with your standard migration approach through Application Designer. They get migrated into production. We don't turn them on or ever use them in production, right? So be careful, don't ever do that. Don't give yourself security access to run these in production because you're in production and they will be creating transactions. But the reason we like to load them into production is to keep them safe. And as you in an organization start to refresh downstream environments, your dev, your test, UAT, QA, whatever others, training, you refresh from production that includes the full working library of PTF scripts. That way, when we go to apply whatever it may be, a new integration, it might be a new module that you're implementing, or it might simply be that you're applying updates to the images, or maybe you're doing a People Tools upgrade. Because our source refreshes from production, which has our library, we're able to execute in those downstream environments in an automated fashion, knowing we're using scripts that at one point in time we know worked, right? So if they fail, and they do, we'll start to evaluate some of the reasons. It might be that we didn't put enough variables in there and we're using old periods, or it might be that the user that we were using is no longer in that same role. Or it might be that something in the image update or the custom application that you applied actually breaks. And this is why we test, right? And so that is the iterative process. There is an upfront effort that I think for, this is for the state. The upfront effort took about 15 weeks to get from our demo gold to a functioning gold library that was stored in the production environment. For NDUS, it was, I can't count those weeks, but it's 28 minus 11, that many, 17 weeks to get NDUS, that's the university system, with their library functioning, okay? Once we did that, once we've applied the PTF library from ours to yours and loaded up the testing grounds deployment, then we're ready to start executing a testing as a service cycle. We're still in our infancy in testing as a service at both the state and NDUS. We, at one point, were thinking that we would do that on a more frequent basis, a quarterly basis each time an image came out. That just wasn't going to work, neither for the state nor for the SpearMC team to do that many rounds. And because of the number of pillars, we're essentially doing about 2 a year per pillar, 1 or 2 per year, I should say. So between 2 and 4 image updates are being evaluated and tested each time we run a full series of test scripts in the tool. Let's see, the total number of scripts is a small number of scripts. I'm going to see if I can launch. Am I able to do that? I can't. I attached the spreadsheet, and we'll actually include this when we post the presentation, that breaks down the actual modules within each of these pillars and shows you the scripts that we settled on. But our demo goal actually starts with, I'm going to say, more than twice these scripts as your starting point. And again, we ended up de-scoping a number of them due to just modules that weren't implemented or very lightly implemented and didn't need to have automated scripts attached to them. And these are the ones that we settled on. Now, when we start executing testing as a service, we start tracking those series. And I think this is actually a screenshot from today. So testing as a service for the state, the current HCM Pillar, we've got 61% of our scripts that are not yet tested, haven't begun for one reason or another. Perhaps it's getting data staged. Tarun might be able to fill us in on what's happening here, but we're executing this as we speak. We have another column for past. We didn't have any failed, so we don't have that column to show you. And then the total that exists for the HCM Pillar at the state. For this cycle, we're running 105 of those scripts, and right now about 38% of them have passed, none have failed, and 61% are to be executed shortly. For financials and ELM, Enterprise Learning Management at the state, we have not executed any of the testing as a service scripts yet, so they're all still sitting in the not % complete. For NDUS, I hope I have all 3 pillars. For the financials pillar, we had a total of only about 6%. Functional help might also be labeled we failed and we need help to figure out what the problem is. I guess we're trying to be less onerous there by saying we need functional help. That's how many have been run and have not run to success or passed, and then 82% have been run and run to success. Each and every one of these, as we drill down, what you saw with Tarun and the testing grounds, you can drill into the individual test evidence, every step that was taken along the way, screenshots of those that passed, as well as, more importantly, those that need focus, that are not yet passed. Let's say they've failed perhaps, or perhaps they failed merely because we need to open a period, or they failed because the user ID we use is no longer valid. For whatever reason, we need support in updating more than likely some variable data. But it very well could be that in contracts, for example, we've got some failures and it's because something in the image changed, maybe a customization that existed. Don't know. That's why we investigate those. But the beauty is that we can have some security, that we've run the standard agreed upon scripts and passed 82%, and really direct our focus onto those that need our attention.
I hop in and provide a little bit of context too for these. So all of these metric sort of tables are taken from our actual trackers that we actually use. So for any of them where you do see that it's not tested or functional help, by the end of the test cycle that we're trying to run, they should all be 100% in the past evidence column. If for some reason they are not, passed, or for whatever reason, there needs to be a reason for that, and then they'll probably be marked as descoped for this test cycle.
Okay.
But please continue.
Thank you. Our goal, this number is 100%. Love it. So this was financials. This is HCM. So we're in flight with both HCM and financials at NDUS. Looking pretty good over here on the HCM pillar. And then campus solutions, have we begun? Yeah, we're doing really well over in campus solutions as well. So this is the benefit that NDUS and the state are receiving, is really helping them to direct their focus on where we need help, where the scripts are failing for whatever reason, drilling into that, and not having to spend their time running these scripts that have run to success. They can always go back, and they can, if they want, run these manually. We've got the evidence. We are not concerned that the tests have not run. We know they have. We've got the evidence. So our focus can go right to solving where the problems lie. All right. I don't think I have any more. Yeah, I'm at the Q&A already. I can't believe it. I left 15 minutes for questions. Kristen, we are open for questions, and we actually have time to answer them.
Perfect, because we do have questions. So the first one, Don asked, do you need to have access to people tools to be able to use this tool?
Tarun, you want to, I'm going to say, I don't know, because I'm a functional guy, but luckily we have Tarun here that he can answer that.
Yeah, the answer is that it's quite similar to accessing App Designer. It's like its own sort of client that you connect to your environment. So there's a little bit of integration broker setup that you have to do to get PTF up and running. If you can get through the integration broker setup, if you can get the client set up, and you can get your security set up, because it uses PeopleSoft security, and it just uses delivered roles, PTF administrator, editor, user, you're good to go.
And Tarun, how about the casual user that would maybe just be using the testing grounds itself?
Mm-hmm. So if you just need to use the testing grounds, you don't need any of that. I mean, you'll want to have PTF set up, but as a specific user to using testing grounds, you just use one of our security roles to give you menu access to the testing grounds, and then you're good to go. the same PeopleSoft security as usual.
And they're able to update the variables and execute scripts without having to have PTF installed, or is that
So
lying?
they can update scripts and they can view logs, they can view screenshots, but they cannot run scripts unless you have the tool, set up on your desktop and everything. So,
resident on your desktop. So even that batch file that we saw that was running is running in the background, but through your installation on your desktop.
Correct. It opens up PTF and it kicks off these scripts in order on the tool itself.
Got it. Okay, Kristen, hopefully that answered the question. If not, maybe they could post a follow-up. And what's next?
Perfect, yes. Peter asked, will previously recorded test scripts need to be updated after a PUM upgrade and or PTools upgrade?
So the answer is it depends. Hopefully the answer is no. And for the most part, the answer is no. There are certain times where test scripts will break. So you have a couple of options. First, you can run a test maintenance report where you use basically the change project that you're using for your PUM update, and you compare that with your scripts. And if any of the data elements being referred to in the scripts have changed, then it'll give you a little report of what tests you might expect to break. So that gives you, a little bit of insight into whatever you need to update. But for the most part, since PTF is referring to specific fields on a page rather than locations on a page, even if things move around on the page a little bit, as long as the general elements on the page stay the same and the function of the page stays the same, you don't need to update a script. So a lot of your core functionality, you don't generally need to update those kind of scripts.
It is nice to get that sort of compare report ahead of time. It gives you a preview of what might actually break. I will say one of the reasons our demo gold library is larger than most clients end up using is you might be aware that there are several pages that have moved from classic to pure fluid, right? Not classic plus, but the fluid alternative. And so we needed to create demo gold scripts for classic eProRec as well as the new fluid eProRec because they're different components. And so in those scenarios, the script would run still on the old, if you don't update to start using the fluid version, right? It's a different component. It will try to run still in the classic menu option, the classic pages. So if your business makes that migration, you'd have to update your test scripts for those pages that are pure fluid. As an example, but that's not necessarily broken. That's literally just shifting from the the delivered classic pages to the new delivered fluid pages.
Okay.
I love to add confusion to Tarun's very clear answers, and hopefully I was able to do that. Kristen, what's next?
Sure. Arun asked, can a load test be performed? For example, 10 to 20 requisitions created simultaneously, then run 1 to 2 and compare the results.
That's a very good question. So there are places where PTF shines and there are places where PTF is not as great to use. So I would always recommend with load testing that you use a different tool. PTF at its core really is meant to replicate the actions of a single user at a time. There are ways you can kind of get around it and you can kind of hack your way around it, but in the end, there are other load testing tools that will do better, I think, for you.
I think one of the points to make is that when you run PTF, it's running as a user who logs on, right? So from a load test, it's not like you could run one script and have it log on as 17 people at once and test performance like that. But you can create scripts that create multiple requisitions or loop through multiple lines of a requisition, if that's the question. But I don't think it is. I think you were literally talking more from a performance and process perspective. So
I do want to throw in there that Spear has worked with making JMeter tests, I believe, before. So it's not like we're totally unaware of like load testing tools. So if that's something that you need help with, sure, we can help you. But I would say the PTF is not the specific hammer for the snail.
Yeah. Okay.
Can tests be created with non-PeopleSoft integrated systems like Isn't
that a great question, Tarun?
That's a very good question. Good questions today. So PTF, one of the sort of reasons that PTF was created was to test the PeopleSoft tool itself, right? So because of that, PTF uses all these PeopleSoft metadata to keep track of where things are on the pages. What that does is, it's great for PeopleSoft, but it limits the tool to specifically working inside PeopleSoft. So we can test, outgoing interfaces up until the edge of PeopleSoft. And at that point, PTF is no longer helpful for your testing. You can also test inbound transactions, but you need to stage those transactions first and then have PTF pick them up once you're inside PeopleSoft. So you can consider PTF's edges as being like the edges of your PeopleSoft application.
So Tarun, have we solved for that issue with any of our clients?
So we've been trying to use Selenium, so just basically your core Selenium, to kind of smooth that edge a little bit to hopefully run a PTF test up to the edge of PeopleSoft and then have Selenium take over from there.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did we do any of that at North Dakota or NDUS?
No, I think so. At North Dakota, we've tried to keep it very specifically inside PeopleSoft, and there is certain bits of interface testing that we are doing at NDUS, but it's we're all fully within PeopleSoft. If it's any outgoing transactions, we just cut it off at there.
Yep, that's the end
for automated testing.
Okay, very good. All right, awesome, honest answer. Thank you. Kristen, give me an easy question.
Well, I'm not sure how easy this is going to be, but I have a great note here that says excellent information shared by Randy and Tarun. Thanks to you both. My question is, Microsoft ends their support to Internet Explorer starting June 15th, 2022. How is SpearMC planning to handle the recording feature in PTF after an Internet Explorer is retired?
Alrighty.
Easy question.
So that
answer, right?
That's huge. So I saw in 859 now, you actually have playback capability in Edge. So proof that Oracle is at least paying attention to this. So what we're hoping for is that Oracle should have us recording in Edge by the time that Internet Explorer is out of service. Now, I did see that this was in 859, so it will be attached to doing a tools update, I believe, to get to that point. But whenever Oracle releases that, we'll be able to take a look at, what prerequisites do you need to get to that point, and how can we get you there so that you can start recording scripts. Now, this is also very specifically just for recording scripts. Yeah. So if we have scripts recorded, this doesn't affect that. Of course, for long-term maintenance, you're probably going to want to get that recording working. But in the shorter term, there are ways that we can kind of work around it a bit.
Tarun, can you expand on, yes, it's for recording. So the development aspect of creating the script to work. When we go to execute it, are we able to execute it on multiple different browser types?
So I always execute on Google Chrome because I love Chrome. And it's just way faster. You also have the option of executing on Firefox, which is also great. You have the option of executing on Internet Explorer, which I highly do not recommend. And now you have the option of executing on Edge. So there are options there. And I also want to make it clear that you can also build scripts without recording. There are many times where I've just built a script from scratch. And once you kind of get into the tool and you understand how everything works and you know how to use the inspect function on your browser, it's easy enough to build these scripts from scratch.
Excellent. I can sense someone out there in the world that is a Apple Safari user. Have we had any customers that run scripts on Safari?
Nope, we work in enterprise, so everything runs in Chrome. So at least as far as I've done, we generally install PTF on Windows machines, right? We usually install it on some sort of a remote desktop, and 99.9% of those are going to be Windows machines. So on Windows, we generally choose to run on Chrome.
All right. Kristen, what's next?
All right. How do you add the second line for the PO or voucher transactions? We have been struggling with this in PTF.
Huge question right there. All right, so you got a couple of options here. First of all, I would just record. First thing I would do is get to that sort of step in your PTF script, put your cursor there, click on the record button, it'll open up the recording tool, navigate to that part of the test, right? So just kind of run through that test without clicking record. And then when you get to that part where you have to insert a line, I would click record and then insert a line. Hopefully, fingers crossed, PTF captures it, but it sounds like it's not. I've always found that I can also use scroll handling at times to work my way through this. But if you just need to, add one row or something to your PO, scroll handling is kind of overkill. Make sure that when you're referencing, like, the little plus button that's on the side to add a row, that you have the correct row number, which is when you look at the recognition column in PTF, you'll sometimes see that it's ended with a $sign and then a 0 or a $1. Make sure that's referencing the correct row. And this starts at, so row 1 would be $0, row 2 would be $1, etc. So that can often trip people up if you're trying to refer to the wrong row. Now, if you want to get more specific than that, feel free to send me an email, send me some screenshots, and I'll try and help you through it.
I love that answer. Kristen, how much time do we have left?
We have 3 minutes and I have 2 comments left, so probably be okay on time. So one was, somebody said Internet Explorer is not required for recording tools in 8.59.07, just released. And then somebody else also said, if it helps, Chrome recording was released in 8.59.07, and they are backporting that to 8.58 in an upcoming release.
Oh,
Edge
wow.
recoding is coming only in 8.59, and this is coming from a heavy PTF usage group who wants to know if, Tarun, you're open for technical emails.
Yes. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for that information. You've somehow made my day with PTF news. Having to record on Internet Explorer has been, kind of a drag. So yes, I'd be totally open to any sort of technical communications that you wanted to involve me in. My email is at the very front of this PowerPoint, which Randy's heading towards. So feel free to send me a message.
I would even text him. Go ahead, everybody, now.
Oh, please.
Not me. Mine's already blowing up because of Aaron Rodgers, but please feel free to reach out to either one of us. Tarun's the expert. As you can see, I'm the pitch man for SpearMC, but this has been a passion of mine, building a practice around the automated testing. I see such value. I think our clients are starting to see the value. I know it's a painful process, though. I know it, to get to the stage where it's really giving you the value. That whole iterative demo gold process to working in your environment does take time, but I am telling you, the investment in that time, it will give you returns forever. So the ability to stay current then is just so important. Goodness gracious. That's it.
Actually, one more question did come in. Are there limitations with end-to-end testing that goes through multiple modules? For example, grant setup and billing?
No. So jumping between modules is no problem with PTF, as long as it's all within PeopleSoft. Make sure that you use variables properly and set up your shell tests so that you're carrying those variables across your tests. and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So especially with grants, I know that, that's a long end-to-end process, from the beginning to end, and you will go through multiple modules, no issue, as long as you set up your variables properly.
Yeah, stringing together the scripts into shells. Is that what am I using the right term?
Yep.
I can be trained. Yeah, that's fantastic, right? And a process like grants is a perfect example of one that might have 30 or 40 different scripts shelled together, and the first one starts the process. Everything else inherits the variables from the predecessor. We're over. Kristen, sorry.
Yeah, no, this was a fantastic discussion. Thank you. Closing this out, of course, by thanking Randy and Tarun, very much appreciated. And then just a reminder for everybody that this is recorded and we will put this up on the Quest site as soon as possible. So take a look there. Thank you so much for joining us at PeopleSoft Week. Have a great day.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Bye now.
everybody.